Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the info session for the 2026 Dutchess Partners in the Arts Grant. This webinar is going to be an overview of the grant funding, the two grant funding opportunities for Dutchess Partners in the Arts, everything you need to know about the guidelines, and then at the end there will be a Q&A session if you have any questions that weren't answered in this presentation. Okay. My name is Laura Doe. I'm Grants Manager for Arts Mid-Hudson, also on our grants team, and joining us today and helping with the technology side of things is Vanessa Capuccio-Bear, our funding coordinator. If you have any questions going forward, you can reach both of us at grants@artsmidhudson.org or by phone at 845-454-3222, extension 11. If you are working with one of us on technical assistance, you may, so as you're reaching out for technical assistance, both Vanessa and myself, we both monitor the grants at artsmidhudson.org and the extension 11 phone number. So if you reach out to one of us for questions, we will do our best to keep the thread of your question, with the same person for continuity's sake. That might not always be possible. So Vanessa and I will make sure to tag team and coordinate accordingly so that we can give you, the most continuity of service possible. All right. So in this presentation, we will cover the following. We're going to go over the purpose of the Dutchess Partners in the Arts Grant. We'll go over important dates. We'll then go into detail about the application guidelines. And then we'll close with basic information on submitting the application for funding. All right. So in addition to today's information session, which is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube for you to go back and look over if you so desire, we will also be having regular Q&A sessions on Zoom in the coming weeks leading up to the deadline, where you can drop in and ask questions about your application. You can brainstorm ideas. You can hear other people's questions. The Q&A sessions are very informal. We do recommend that you review the guidelines before the Q&A sessions, as you'll probably get a higher quality experience that way, but you certainly don't have to. One of the things that people find valuable about attending the drop-in Q&A sessions is that others might come up with a question that you may not have thought of. And it's a really good opportunity to gain access to that thinking and information as well. It's especially if you're new to writing grants, hearing how other people think through their applications and think through their projects and their process can be a valuable learning experience. You can also just as easily drop into the Q&A sessions, ask your question, and then leave. Either way, we're good either way. Like I said, it's very informal. So an up-to-date schedule and a link to our RSVP can be found on our website at artsmidhudson.org. If you want to attend the Q&A sessions in the coming weeks, you will need to RSVP. And then once you RSVP, you'll receive an email with the Zoom access information. And we get this question a lot. For all of our Q&A sessions, and including this info session, the Zoom link is going to be the same. And you'll find it in the confirmation email that you received when you signed up for all of the info sessions. You might have to scroll down a little, but the Zoom link is there. If you have any trouble finding it, just reach out to us. We'll be happy to help. And yeah, like I said, you'll receive email reminders before those upcoming Q&A sessions from grants@artsmidhudson.org. You're welcome to attend one or more of those sessions, or you can attend none of them. You can attend all of them. You can attend some of them. It's really up to you and what you feel like you need in terms of guidance. All right. And then if there are any specific accommodations that we can provide to facilitate your participation, please feel free to reach out to us. These may include, but are not limited to, translation services, large text documents, or specific technical support. We'll do our best to help you with requests for accommodations on a tailored case-by-case basis. If you're anticipating some type of barrier towards your participation in this program and could use additional accommodations, just let us know what we can provide and we'll do our best. Of course, the earlier you reach out to us, the more that increases the likelihood that we can really help you as you would like to be helped. But of course, we won't turn people away if they need help. And assistance is available to all applicants to discuss specific questions, brainstorm ideas, and receive feedback on a draft or a budget. After Friday of this week, so basically starting next Monday, you will be able to sign up for 20-minute appointments on our You Can Book Me link, which is in the email. You'll see it's in the email signature of our grants@artsmidhudson.org email address, where you can sign up for 20-minute appointments. You can obtain draft review, or you can use that appointment for general brainstorming and questions about Dutchess Partners in the Arts. This same link to sign up for appointments is also available on our website for this funding opportunity. And yeah, just to talk about the technical assistance a little more, a lot of people don't know this, even though we do try to put it front and center. But we offer a lot of in-depth draft feedback on writing and on budgets for grants that you're working on for all of our funding opportunities, including Dutchess Partners in the Arts. So like I said, all you have to do is make an appointment and select draft review, and then we can give, Vanessa or myself can give feedback related to what you've written on your submittable form. So whatever you've saved up until that point, when you click the save button, we'll be able to see as a draft. And we can review and see your draft on our end and give you feedback over the phone. If you've applied to us in the past, we also have panel feedback from previous applications if you have not obtained it yet. And we encourage you to reach out and obtain panel feedback if you haven't yet, because that may be helpful information to your upcoming application. Again, if you haven't yet received it. We offer free and varied assistance. It's a great way to put together a proposed project proposal and network. You never know what you're going to get out of these appointments, and a lot of people do find that it helps them connect the dots on their project in a really cohesive way. The grants team, we talk to hundreds of applicants every year about their ideas and plans, and you get the benefit of Arts Mid-Hudson's knowledge of the region and who may be working in your area on arts and cultural projects. So we do a lot of connecting people, and it's great to get feedback about your proposal before you submit. Just getting that extra set of eyes. I mean, as a grant writer myself, I know that gives me that extra layer of support. So we're happy to do that for you. Okay, so we're going to go into the purpose of Dutchess Partners in the Arts. First of all, where does the funding come from? So I'll refer to it as DPA going forward, Dutchess Partners in the Arts, DPA. DPA funding comes from the Office of the Dutchess County Executive and Destination Dutchess. And we are so grateful and pleased to partner with them to implement arts and cultural offerings. Through the DPA program, we are seeking partners that have a history of achievement in the arts, strong management, stable finances, and self-sustaining programs with the potential to make a measurable impact on tourism, engage Dutchess County residents, and or contribute to the vibrant arts ecosystem of Dutchess County. So there are two funding streams for DPA, two different grant opportunities within this one program, and organizations are able to maximum submit one application for each. So as a nonprofit, you could submit a programmatic support application, and you could submit a capacity building initiative application if you so choose, or you could submit one, but you are able to submit a maximum of one each for a total of two different grant applications. So you can submit maximum one programmatic support request and one capacity building initiative request. For programmatic support, the main focus is to support arts and cultural programming in Dutchess County as a means of attracting visitors to our region and having a meaningful impact on tourism. So for the programmatic support funding is coming from Destination Dutchess, and therefore there is a great focus for programmatic support on funding programs that have a measurable impact on tourism, specifically in Dutchess County. And then for capacity building initiatives, we are focused on supporting nonprofit arts and cultural organizations in efforts to grow, expand, or improve their work and positively impact the arts and cultural scene of Dutchess County by strengthening established arts organizations which benefit residents and visitors. Okay, now we're going to go into important dates around Dutchess Partners in the Arts. The most important date you need to know is the deadline for submitting this grant, Tuesday, April 21st, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. And that is exactly when the application will close unsubmittable and no applications will be submitted after the deadline. So I know you're all preparing it now and you're all going to get it submitted early because that's who we are. And you wouldn't be here in this info session if that wasn't the case. All right, and all applications are submitted only via the submittable portal. You will need to make an account there, and this platform is convenient because you don't have to do it all in one go. You can save your draft and come back to it later, and you can save as many times as you want. It's very convenient in that way, including for draft review, if you so choose to obtain that. You are, in terms of grant notification, it may happen in May, it may happen in early June. I would plan on early June at the very latest. We will do our best to get it earlier, but definitely plan on it being early June. We don't put an exact date on the application notification because it's dependent on how the review period goes and how many applications we receive. And then funded projects must occur between January 1st to December 31st of 2026. That means that we can retroactively fund your project if you are seeking funding for something that already occurred, as long as it, like I said, began January 1st of this year. That would be the earliest retroactively. So if you're proposing something that has already occurred as far back as January 1st of this year, we strongly recommend that you talk about what happened very clearly so far in your application, and that you have really clear numbers and data around who attended and have strong program documentation. So you can really make a strong case for support of this is how we started in the year, and this is where we're going, and this is why we need DPA support. All right. Next, we're going to focus on the one of the two DPA funding streams, the Capacity Building Initiative. So the capacity building initiatives are intended to help nonprofit arts organizations work more effectively and better meet their mission. Initiatives for CBI may create a new area of work. They may develop new strategies. They may enhance current programming in a significant manner. Please note that applicants may submit one application for each category, programmatic support or capacity building, so you can submit one to each if you would like. All right, here's some other key details about the Capacity Building Initiative. Funding requests can range between $2,500 to $11,000. There is no cash match required. We ask that you be careful not to ask for more or less than that range. Especially, we don't recommend asking for less than $2,500 because that will automatically make your project ineligible. We cannot give more than is requested, and we cannot give less than $2,500 for any award. Established nonprofit arts organizations or artistic programs that have been in existence for 3 or more years and have a record of success are eligible and encouraged to apply for the CBI initiative. This means that the organization has been incorporated for 3 years, or if the programming was going on in a grassroots or unincorporated way for 2 years and you've been incorporated as a nonprofit for 1 year, as long as the program itself has been in existence for 3 years, you are eligible. And in terms of mediums, organizations working in all expressive artistic disciplines are eligible. This includes, but is not limited to, visual arts, performing arts, literature, digital, traditional, and experimental mediums, as long as it's intended to be an expressive artistic medium, as opposed to, say, commercial, then it is eligible. Eligible applicants, will go into eligibility a little bit more. So for eligibility, all applicants must be a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization that identifies arts and or cultural services as the primary activity in the organization's mission. This is very important, and you'll hear this from me more than once in this presentation. The way we determine if an organization is truly an arts and cultural organization is we see it listed as a primary activity in your organization's mission statement. I do want to just flag something that has come up in recent years, just so that you know the pothole and you know not to step in this pothole. It has come up a couple of times in recent years where we noticed a mission statement had been submitted on this DPA application that did not match the mission statement on the applicant's website. I bring this up to, again, flag this. It's not an acceptable workaround. It's not in alignment with our guidelines to do that. If an arts and culture is a primary activity in your organization's mission, that should be reflected everywhere in your website, in your mission. There shouldn't be a discrepancy between what's on your application and the mission listed on your website. So again, you just to reiterate, you want to make sure when checking if you're eligible for DPA that the arts and cultural aspect is listed as a primary activity in your organization's mission statement. That is one of the core litmus tests of whether your organization is eligible for this grant. Nonprofit arts organizations incorporated in Dutchess County and or nonprofits that have a long-term lease or own a building in Dutchess County are also eligible. All nonprofits applying must have a board of directors and a board-approved non-discrimination policy. And this year we are asking that you include the non-discrimination policy document with your application, as we don't have the capacity to check if we already have it on file. Let's go into ineligible applicants. All right, so individuals and unincorporated groups are not eligible for the capacity building side, but we will revisit that topic again for programmatic support. So don't assume that if you are an individual or an unincorporated group that you are absolutely not eligible for any aspect of this grant. Just stick around for programmatic support. So going back to CBI, CBI is only for nonprofit 501c3 registered organizations that have arts or culture listed as a primary activity in the mission and are incorporated in Dutchess County or have a long-term lease or own a building in Dutchess County. Also ineligible organizations include public school districts, 2 or 4-year public universities or colleges. Again, I want to emphasize public universities or colleges. County-level government agencies, for-profit entities, including LLCs, libraries and social service organizations, units of government, nonprofits incorporated outside of Dutchess County who do not own a building or have a long-term lease, and organizations that have not submitted the requisite reports on prior funded activities to Arts Mid-Hudson. I do want to reiterate this again. We will not be able to accept applications from organizations that have outstanding reports to us. Reporting will continue to be a strong focus this year and every year. Panelists will be asking about previous reporting track records because it's a significant factor in reviewing the feasibility of an application. Is this applicant doing what they say they're going to do? Do they have a track record of doing what they say they're going to do? So yeah, like I said, if you have an outstanding report to Arts Mid-Hudson, you would be ineligible this year. Okay, eligible initiatives may include, but are not limited to, for this capacity building, strategic planning or board development, new or expanded staff positions, training for staff and board and or volunteers, capital improvements, technology improvements, website or equipment upgrades, and audience or marketing plan development, especially for materials that are evergreen and about raising the awareness of the organization annually. Less successful applications tend to roll a lot of these components into one application. Again, another pothole that I want to point out so that you don't step in it. For example, if you're asking for an equipment purchase and additionally in the same application some more funding for some staff time or maybe a little training for another staff member, the application starts to read like a general operating support application and not like a focused capacity building initiative that has discrete goals and outcomes focused towards capacity building. So there could be, you could put together a unique combination of approaches. We have seen that done successfully. Again, as long as it's all really focused on one overarching goal towards organizational or growth, towards expanding the capacity of your organization. That's a good opportunity if you're in any way unsure about the direction of your application to reach out to us for technical support. Okay, now embedded in Arts Mid-Hudson's mission and vision is inclusion. Arts Mid-Hudson strives towards broad inclusion and true access to arts and cultural programming for all, and the DPA grant is no exception. Capacity building initiatives are wide-ranging, and they present opportunities for an organization to be more inclusive. We encourage thoughtful outreach to all groups in our region and efforts to seek input from many points of view when undertaking capacity building initiatives. So as you're developing your CBI application, this can offer up a really great opportunity for your organization to talk to your audience, talk to the group you're trying to better serve, and talk internally to your staff and your team to gather data, whether it be qualitative or quantitative, to make a case for why this initiative is going to be truly impactful and is in conversation and directly connecting with the people that you're actually trying to reach. Specific outreach to historically underserved audiences is encouraged, including groups who may have limited access to arts program services or resources due to location, race, economic status, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, religion, disability, or other factors. All right. So now we're going to go into a couple of different scenarios about different applications that we might see for CBI, and just provide some very high-level advice on how to be successful with those different asks. So if your CBI ask, your application is geared towards a new or expanded staff position, we recommend making a case for why this hire is important to the organization at this time. Why are you asking for funding now? Why DPA? Consider how your constituents will benefit from the hire, or how you might be able to expand your audience in Dutchess County as a result of this hire. Think about why now. Why is this important to do at this time? How are you set up to manage this new hire? How will this position have a strong impact on your capacity to meet your mission? Of course, always connecting back to your mission, which, of course, is going to be centered on the arts. And then the application will ask how the job will be posted. If you've already identified the person you want to hire, you want to be honest and transparent about where you are within the hiring process, whether you've already done the selection or are planning to do so. The application will specifically ask if this position will be ongoing or if it's one-time consultancy. So you really want to be clear about what the configuration of the position is, so that the panel, doesn't have follow-up questions about what exactly you're asking for. And then for expanded staff hours, you want to include new tasks and explain what they've been doing and what they'll be doing in addition to their previous work. Again, tying it back to how this ask is going to expand tourism and economic development in Dutchess County. All right. Another type of application that we tend to see for CBI is technology and equipment upgrades. So for technology and equipment upgrades, you'll want to explain the organization or staff's capacity to use and maintain the new technology or equipment. You'll want to consider accessibility in a technology ask. If you're thinking about technology or equipment upgrades, think about the accessibility of the software or the equipment, or how user-friendly it will be for your staff. Consider whether you need a customized solution, which may be more costly, or identify an off-the-shelf alternative and be clear on why that approach is best for your organization's needs. The benefit to the organization or audience needs to be clearly defined if you're looking to purchase technology or equipment upgrades. What's the ripple effect for your organization? What does that mean for the community in terms of what you're able to present, or who or how many people you're able to reach as a result of these upgrades? Also, you'll want to address the lifespan of the new equipment. Showing awareness of that in your application will show a strong case for support in your application and will show that you're really thinking carefully through how these funds are being used. And then another app type of eligible ask we tend to see for CBI is marketing or outreach initiatives. Marketing and outreach initiatives, these should be for the organization as a whole, not specific to a single project for the year. You want to be thoughtful, research-based, and realistic around what you're trying to do for your marketing outreach ask. So you'll want to use the funding as an opportunity to expand your current audience. Think about hiring individuals from the groups that you are trying to reach out to, if that is the direction of your proposal. People who have expertise in reaching a specific audience, for example. We encourage seeking input from individuals from historically underrepresented groups, particularly if you're trying to do a marketing or outreach plan geared towards that specific group. And then you'll want to think about the relevancy of the programs to the audience that you're trying to reach, of course. And for whatever tools you're using, you want to clearly explain in the proposal narrative why these tools are the right fit, as opposed to maybe other tools you might choose that may be, cheaper, or, really specifying like why these tools, why now. Okay. Now we're going to do an overview of the evaluation criteria for the capacity building initiative. 3 main criteria, artistic merit being the first one. Artistic merit takes into consideration the applicant organization's track record and the quality of the programming to be enhanced by the initiative. This is really determined by the work samples that are optional. They're not required, but they are strongly recommended for this grant, because that helps. It helps the panel understand. It helps support your artistic mission. It really gives the panel artifacts that they can use to help understand, the artistic impact that your organization makes. And then, yes, impact is next. Potential impact of the proposed initiative on residents of and visitors to Dutchess County, and impact on the applicant organization's ability to provide excellent arts and cultural programming. And the last evaluation criteria for the capacity building initiative is feasibility, of evidence of planning in place to execute the proposed initiative as described in the application, taking into consideration the budget, the timeline, and the implementation plans. For example, does the budget make sense? Does the timeline that you've proposed make sense? Is it within the project timeline in the application of January 1st to December 31st, for example? Does the timeline, if it's within that parameter, assuming, does it seem like something that is realistic for your organization to do? Do the people involved seem capable of executing the project as described? And throughout, consideration will be given to the ability of the applicant to meet evaluation and reporting requirements, which we'll go into. So the characteristics of a competitive capacity building initiative application include highly feasible initiatives. Your proposal is straightforward, feasible, reads as a quick and clear conversation for the panel. Usually, if the panel has follow-up questions, or if they're saying to themselves in the panel discussion, wow, this doesn't make sense, like the budget doesn't match what their narrative responses say. I'm not seeing alignment between what they're asking in the proposal narrative and the figures in the budget. That's when we start to see points go down, when panelists start asking questions to clarify and try to make sense of the proposal. So that's one way that you can have a competitive advantage, everything aligning with everything else, budget aligning with narrative, et cetera. Also, is your other competitive attributes. Is your project sustainable? Is it likely to have a lasting effect on the organization, not just in the short term? Does your project have clearly defined goals and measurable success? You've stated in the application what you're hoping to achieve, and you have some methods in place to actually track that success. For example, using numbers to support what you're saying. If you've been doing 10 shows a year And then with this new equipment that you're asking for funding for, you're able to do 15. That's a strong measurement, for example. That is helpful to articulate in your application, really helps the panel understand what kind of impact you're projecting to have. And then efforts which increase access to arts and cultural programming, engage individuals in our region who don't typically attend arts and cultural events, and applications from organizations with clearly defined history and commitment to serving historically underserved communities are all competitive. And of course, organizations or proposals that contribute positively to the arts and cultural offerings of Dutchess County. All right, now we're going to switch gears to programmatic support, the other second funding stream in Dutchess Partners in the Arts. So the objective of programmatic support for DPA is to provide support for arts and cultural programming throughout Dutchess County that will have a measurable impact on tourism, engage local residents, and contribute to the vibrant arts ecosystem of our beloved Mid-Hudson Valley. The applications will be considered from partners that have a track record and demonstrate the ability to manage logistics and deadlines effectively. A key component to successful partnerships in this funding program is the ability to report reliable statistics, marketing results, and accurate outcomes. So again, you are welcome to submit one application to programmatic support and one to capacity building initiatives. And submitting one or both will not impact your competitiveness. So I don't want you to worry about that. You should submit for what is organic to your organization's needs at this time and what's in alignment. So I want to focus now on tourism and economic impact. All programs must have a stated focus on generating a measurable impact on tourism in Dutchess County. Programs must be open to the public and they must take place in Dutchess County. If your project is not really fitting into the tourism requirement, that is an immediate factor where I would recommend reaching out to us if you feel that anything's unclear or a gray area, to identify how your program could have a meaningful impact on tourism. Arts Mid-Hudson is helpful. Our grants team at Arts Mid-Hudson is helpful to brainstorm with about that. If it's just not the right fit, that's perfectly fine. There are other grant programs that will be available to you this year. Successful programs will include stated goals and expected outcomes related to the program's economic impact, and applicants must demonstrate the ability to meet evaluation and reporting requirements, including tracking attendance by zip code and earned revenue as a result of the funded project. Other key details of the Programmatic Support Grant. Funding requests for Programmatic Support can range from $500 to $5,000. There is no cash match required for Programmatic Support either. Established nonprofit arts organizations or artistic programs that have been in existence for 3 or more years and have a record of success are eligible and encouraged to apply. 3 or more years is the key word here. And then individuals and unincorporated groups may apply to programmatic support with an eligible fiscal sponsor. The project must still have a very clear impact on tourism. We will go into the fiscal sponsor side of things in a bit. That is an area that tends to generate a lot of questions, understandably. And as with programmatic support too, all expressive artistic disciplines, including visual, performing, written, digital, traditional, folk arts, and experimental mediums are eligible for this program. So eligible programmatic support requests may include, but are not limited to, arts exhibitions, performances such as concerts and live theater, presentations such as films, screenings, or readings, arts and cultural festivals, and unique experiences that have interactive activities that have a measurable impact on tourism. Eligible applicants are as follows. All applicants must be registered 501c3 organizations, which identifies arts or cultural services as a primary activity in the organization's mission. Just like with CBI, the arts or cultural services must be centered in your organization's mission. And that must be reflected in all of your public-facing materials, not just what you submit in the grant. It also needs to be reflected in your website as well. Nonprofit arts and cultural organizations incorporated in Dutchess County, those with a long-term lease or owning a building in Dutchess County, or organizations which implement significant programming in Dutchess County are all eligible to apply. You want to note that implement significant programming is, I anticipate questions may come up around that. If you have a question about whether your organization qualifies in this way, if it meets the criteria of implementing significant programming, please feel free to reach out to us if you're in any way unclear about whether your organization meets that criteria in Dutchess County. Just reach out to us if you're in any way unclear, and we'll be happy to talk through that and help you get some clarity around that. I recommend definitely talking through that before you apply to this grant. Unincorporated groups or individuals who are fiscally sponsored by an eligible organization can apply. All nonprofits applying must have a board of directors and a board-approved non-discrimination policy, and organizations must have at least 3 years of programmatic history. Okay, let's talk about fiscal sponsorship. And again, fiscal sponsorship is only available as an option for programmatic support, not for CBI, only for programmatic support. So for an unincorporated group or an individual applying with a fiscal sponsor, the fiscal sponsor is considered the legal applicant on the application. So essentially, the fiscal sponsor is extending their nonprofit status to the individual or unincorporated group so that the individual or unincorporated group can access those funds. So the nonprofit serving as a fiscal sponsor must meet all of the same eligibility criteria that we just covered for the nonprofit applicants. Arts is centered to their mission, etc. So everything that we just talked about eligibility-wise for nonprofits also applies to any fiscal sponsor that you obtain for Dutchess Partners in the Arts Programmatic Support. The project must take place in Dutchess County. The sponsored individual or group must also be based in Dutchess County. That is a question that comes up a lot, so I'll just say it one more time. The project for programmatic support, if you are seeking a fiscal sponsor, must take place in Dutchess County, and the sponsored individual or group that is seeking fiscal sponsorship must also be based in Dutchess County. Nonprofit organizations may submit directly and serve as a fiscal sponsor for one additional project. So you want to just be careful if you do that you don't create a perception that you're trying to get around the limit. I'm not worried about that, but I just, again, a pothole that I don't want you to step in. I would also at the same time push back against the idea that serving as a fiscal sponsor is going to hurt your chances of being funded. I don't want you to really go in worrying about that either. Panelists really appreciate when an organization steps up to serve as fiscal sponsor. You just, again, want to make sure that you're not exceeding the limit. So you can apply as a nonprofit for this grant as the legal applicant. And you can also, if you wish, if it aligns with what your activities and your goals for this year, you can also serve as a fiscal sponsor for one other unincorporated group or individual. So if you choose the fiscal sponsorship route, you'll include a letter of agreement signed by the fiscal sponsor. And that letter of agreement is available as an attachment on our website. When you go to our DPA landing page, you'll need to scroll down a little bit. You'll see that there is a letter of agreement for fiscal sponsorship that you can download. Okay, now let's talk about ineligible applicants. So ineligible applicants include individuals and unincorporated groups who do not have a fiscal sponsor. Also ineligible applicants include public school districts, 2- or 4-year public universities and colleges, New York State agencies, county-level government agencies, for-profit entities, including LLCs. I also want to note that you cannot apply as an LLC with a nonprofit fiscal sponsor. Libraries, social service organizations, units of government, government agencies, and organizations or groups that have not submitted the requisite reports on prior funded activities to Arts Mid-Hudson. And also, and I'll say this until the cows come home, if you have any outstanding reports, you would not be eligible. All right, of course, inclusive programming is embedded in all of our offerings. All DPA programmatic support funded programs must be open to the general public. Arts Mid-Hudson strives towards broad inclusion and true access to arts and cultural programming for all. We encourage thoughtful outreach to and efforts to seek input from all groups in our region and specific outreach and inclusion to efforts to underserved audiences. We get a lot of questions from applicants who want to expand their audience to a specific group but aren't sure how to do that. A great place to start is seeking input from the group you are trying to reach. And that's where you're going to get a lot of really good information that will be helpful in terms of coming up with a strategy to expand your audience and have a greater impact on tourism. And we're also happy to help talk and brainstorm this for you if you sign up for a brainstorming appointment with us. All right, we want to talk about ADA compliant locations as well in the spirit of inclusion. A heads up that application priority when the panel is reviewing this will be given to activities that take place in locations that are fully compliant with the American Disabilities Act, ADA Section 504. Priority may also be given to activities that include additional methods to make the arts accessible to audiences or plan for temporary measures necessary to make sites accessible. So the reason you would be given priority is because you're making efforts to reach more people, which is completely in alignment with the tourism focus and our efforts to reach more residents and visitors, and with, of course, the inclusion focus of Arts Mid-Hudson's mission. So if you have a really strong plan to make your project or program more accessible, it's going to make your programmatic support application more competitive in this applicant pool. If you have any questions about the nuances of whether your location is ADA compliant, you can reach the ADA hotline number. It is in our guidelines as well, but it's right here too. Okay, so going into the priorities of programmatic support, priority may be given to programmatic support requests for the following expenses. Artist fees, and this is always Arts Mid-Hudson's #1 priority, paying artists. And of course, marketing expenses, which are particularly important to tourism-focused programming, consumable art supplies and materials needed logistically to do the work, and efforts to increase accessibility to arts programming, basically anything that's going to expand who's able to attend and where people are attending from. And to go into the evaluation criteria for programmatic support, there are some similarities to CBI, but also some differences as well, which we'll go into. The first one is artistic merit. We're taking into consideration the programs, the participating organizations, and the applicant organization's track record. Impact is the second one. We're looking at potential impact of the proposed program on tourism within Dutchess County and impact on access to arts and cultural programming for Dutchess County residents. We're looking at feasibility, evidence of planning in place to execute the proposed activities as described, taking into consideration the budget, timeline, and implementation plans. And lastly, the panel is looking at success measurement, which is the ability of the applicant to meet evaluation and reporting requirements, including tracking attendance by zip code and earned revenue as a result of the funded project. So each of these 4 criteria can receive up to 4 points, each representing a quarter of how your application is reviewed. So each, like I said, each of these artistic merit, impact, feasibility, and success measurement, that's 4 points each, up to 4 points in each area, for a total of 16 points max. So each represent a quarter of how your application is reviewed, and that's how important our ability to assess whether the applicant can successfully measure their impact is to this program. All right, what makes a programmatic support grant competitive? We'll go into that. First of all, positive impact on tourism and impact on Dutchess County residents. We're really looking for a balance of both in a competitive DPA programmatic support application. We will fund artists from within Dutchess County and also from outside Dutchess County. If you are bringing in someone from outside the area, you really want to make sure that that's an artist that's going to have a strong impact on tourism, of course. And it's also important to whether you're bringing in artists from outside Dutchess County, whether, like artists from New York City, for example, or an artist from Dutchess County, a local artist. It's very important either way to articulate in your project description the projected impact that engaging artist is going to have on tourism. And if there's a way to involve local artists as well, that is often the winning combination. And then the next competitive point to keep in mind is track record and commitment of the organization to reach underserved audiences through thoughtful outreach and relevant programming. So if you have a strong track record of bringing in specific audiences and tailoring your marketing efforts so that the audiences you seek to reach are being engaged and you are bringing these audiences into your programming, that's a transferable experience that shows that you'll have a great impact on tourism. And then a strong marketing and promotion plan. There's a strong plan in place that's going to let the public know about the great work that you're doing. And then lastly, ability to monitor and report on program goals, outcomes, and attendance. Okay, now we'll talk about the submission process for both both DPA grants, both CBI and Programmatic Support. So like I said, all grant proposals must be submitted online by Tuesday, April 21st, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. to our submittable platform. No applications will be submitted after 11:59. So if you require assistance in completing the online submission form, we do ask that you contact us in advance of the deadline as soon as possible. The sooner you reach out to us, especially if you have any very specific technical needs, the more likely we will be to help you. That doesn't mean we'll turn anyone away. It just means that it's just easier for us to anticipate, especially complex technical needs if we receive advance notice. All materials are available on our website at artsmidhudson.org. You would navigate to the grants and funding at the top search bar. Then you'd click on grants and funding and then scroll down to Dutchess Partners in the Arts and click learn more. So that's where you'd find links to the guidelines, the application, the fiscal sponsor letter of agreement, and the link to make an appointment with us if you would like to do so. Supplemental documents you'll be asked to provide for either application or both include a staff list for the organization, your board list, the organization's annual budget for the most recent fiscal year, your nonprofit and financial documents, whether that's for you if you're applying as a nonprofit or your fiscal sponsor if you're applying for programmatic support as an individual or unincorporated group. These documents may include a CHAR 500, a Form 990 or 990EZ, or other 990s depending on the size of your organization and how you file with the IRS, and or an independent accountant's public accountant's opinion. The guidance and the guidelines will show you which documents you're expected to provide. If you have any specific questions about that, you can, of course, reach out to us. You'll want to also include a proof of your non-discrimination policies. And for both programmatic support and capacity building, I'll say this again, work samples are strongly recommended. Work samples are really going to speak, they're not required, but they are strongly recommended. They are going to speak directly to the artistic merit aspect of the evaluation criteria to really support, and having strong work samples really supports your organization's artistic centered mission, which will really maximize your points in that area. I do also want to note, we do not recommend including links to outside places in place of a work sample. We recommend uploading specific files to the work sample section. Our panelists will be reading a lot of applications. They'll be reading a lot of information. Not all panelists feel comfortable clicking on external links. We cannot guarantee that they will click on any links that you include in your application. So if it's critically important to you that a piece be viewed by the panel, again, we strongly recommend that it be uploaded as a work sample or in the supplemental materials section if it's critically important that the panel see it. Okay, and then, like I said, all DPA applications, all materials will be available at our Dutchess Partners in the Arts landing page. And that's where you'll find all the information about this grant program, links to the guidelines, the application, the fiscal sponsor letter of agreement. Actually, Vanessa, if you wouldn't mind dropping that link in the chat box, just in case anyone has trouble finding it, that would be great when you get the chance. And then this is where you'll find all the information about the grant, including the link to make an appointment with us and the ongoing list of Q&A sessions that you can join on Zoom in the coming days. You can also click there to go to our previously funded page, where we have a list going back to 2015 of projects we have funded for a DPA, both Programmatic Support and CBI, if you're interested in seeing who has been funded in previous years. And that's a really good way also to decide if this is the right grant for you, to see projects we funded in the past. All right, and then we're coming towards the end. I'm going to close out and start winding down with some general application tips for success. And this really, what I'm about to share, applies to really all grants, not just ours. So you want to make sure that you're answering the questions in the application directly and succinctly, while at the same time giving enough detail so that the panel can understand the scope of the project and the depth of planning. You have around 600 words approximately per section. And that is a lot of real estate. And it is always a tricky balance between being succinct and being detailed. But I think a good litmus test for that is writing your proposal for someone who knows nothing about you or the project. Now, every year we have a really lovely mix of applicants who have applied for and perhaps won several grants through Arts Mid-Hudson before, and we have a mix of new applicants, which is wonderful. That's what we want to see. A mix of both is what's wonderful and expected. But even if you have received funding from the Dutchess Partners in the Arts or other Arts Mid-Hudson grants opportunities in the past, I strongly advise you to still write your application as if for someone, again, who knows nothing about you or your project, because it is safe to assume that a different set of panelists will be reviewing your application each year. I would always assume that, and I would never assume that it's going to be the same set of eyes reviewing your application. And also goes back to the fact that anytime there's questions of like, wait, this doesn't add up, this section doesn't align with the other section, the budget doesn't align with the narrative. Again, that's where I start to see the points getting reduced. So you just never want to assume. You always want to be as clear as possible and as explicit as possible in what you have planned within the application capacity. Of course, you want to keep the panel focused on your ideas by providing complete information. You also want to show evidence of the evaluation criteria and reference the goals and priorities of this program throughout your application. So we've discussed the evaluation criteria for both grants. And we have discussed the guidelines and what makes a project eligible, what makes a project competitive. And so the most competitive projects, proposals that you review are going to directly reflect and articulate those evaluation criteria and those guidelines in your narrative. Because that is the same language that the panelists will use to prepare to review your application. If they see that you are directly reflecting that evaluation criteria and those guidelines in your narrative, that is going to read to them as a feasible project that reflects the guidelines and is very much in alignment with what they want to fund. So that's one way that you can make your project easier to fund, directly reflect the guidelines and the evaluation criteria in your narrative. And then an editing tip that can be really effective towards achieving that goal is that when editing your writing, and this is just one thing that might work for you, and if it doesn't, just throw it out the window. But you could start at the bottom of a paragraph, a bottom of a section, and then read each sentence on its own going backwards. Try it once. Let me know how it goes. And ask yourself, is each sentence the most efficient it can be? Reading in reverse can make it much easier to edit and cut from your passage because you're able to look at your own work from a different perspective. It's hard to really evaluate the accuracy and the alignment to the guidelines of your work if you're just reading it over and over again in the same order. So that exercise helps your brain think differently. And it's almost like you're looking at it through a different set of eyes. Okay, let's talk about the budget. The budget is critically important to both applications. we recommend working on the narrative and the budget in tandem, and always checking for consistency throughout. Does the budget match the narrative? Does the narrative match the budget? I often recommend working on the budget first, since that can act as a map for the rest of the proposal. In my own grant writing practice, I've always started with the budget, because if I know that if the budget works, the rest of the proposal is probably going to work. A common mistake that applicants do is to write the whole application and then sit down to do the budget last and find out that what you're actually requesting for isn't well supported in the narrative. So a couple of ways to get around that are, again, to work on the budget and the narrative in tandem, or to even start with the budget first. And then you'll see when you go to our application form that there is a budget grid that you can fill in. You do not need to, and we do not encourage you to upload a separate spreadsheet of your project budget. There is already a form in there that you can input that information into for that specific purpose. So we strongly recommend using the explanation column in the budget to break down line items clearly, because again, that is another area where panelists will have questions. These are public funds that are being requested, and panelists really want to understand how those public funds are being used. So for example, rather than just writing down $4,000 for artist fees, you want to break it down to show which artists are being paid what amount. And it's also helpful for the panelists to understand, what the rate structure is. Is it hourly? Is it per diem? Is it a stipend? The more detail you can provide on how these funds are being used, especially since they are public funds, the stronger and more competitive your application is going to be, and the more in alignment with the guidelines it's going to be. This is another thing that trips people up every year. You take care that you're not putting in any dollar symbols in the dollar amount columns on submittable. And it does say this in the help text. Not everybody sees it, so we're flagging it right now as a group. We get at least 5 applications every year where this causes problems. If you put dollar signs in the columns, in the budget column, the budget's not going to add up to your ask amount. So that's an easily fixable thing. You're going to want to check the guidelines for funded priorities and ineligible expenses, of course. And of course, when in doubt, that's why we're here. You can reach out to us and we can give you that extra set of eyes so we can help you catch all those little things. All right, and peer panel review is one of the final and very important steps in this process. All submitted proposals are reviewed using a peer panel evaluation process. Panelists for DPA will include artists, arts workers, or community members who live or work in Dutchess County and work in arts and culture, are artists themselves, have expertise in tourism, marketing, or event planning, or are just really active citizens involved in our local arts and cultural scene. Our panels change every year, which is also another reason why I encourage applicants to continue applying. And please know that a rejection one year is not an indication of future success, because there will be a new panel with new subjective opinions. And if you're new to the whole grantsmanship craft, a lot of people find that submitting a grant and then maybe not getting it, but obtaining panel feedback, which is available to everyone who applies for our grants, can be a very helpful way to grow as a grant writer, grow as your project design skills, and to position yourself for success the following year. And even if you don't win the grant, you have still gone through the very valuable experience of basically creating a business plan for your project. You've put the thoughts on paper for a very clear idea of what you want to do for your project. And even if you don't get the grant, no one can take that experience and that clarity away from you that you've obtained from going through the application process. And that positions you for even more success when you apply for future grants, whether it's this one or a different foundation. We want to position you for success in Arts Mid-Hudson and beyond. And then Arts Mid-Hudson staff and board members, it's important to note, do not have a vote in this process. The grants team at Arts Mid-Hudson and the board, we of course facilitate the process, but we do not have a vote in this process. That is, the decision-making falls squarely on the panelists. Panelists have access to information on previously funded projects and previous reporting track records. Prior grant funding does not guarantee continued support. This again is why we always recommend that you always assume and position your proposal as if it's going to be read by a completely different set of eyes. And if you're interested in being a panelist, oh, this is very important. If you're interested in being a panelist or know someone who would be a great panelist, we have a nomination form linked on our website. And if for some reason you can't find that form, just email grants@artsmidhudson.org and say you want to be a panelist, and we will be in touch with you. Okay, very important. Let's talk about responsibilities if you receive an award. So there are some reporting requirements you will want to be prepared for. First of all, there is an interim report. All reports can be submitted also on Submittable. That is the only place to submit reports. So the first one is an interim report, and that's for capacity building grant awardees only. And the interim report is not a long form at all. It is a short narrative form outlining the progress of the project. Basically, it's a paragraph telling us what you've done so far with your capacity building project. It's going to be due midway through the funding period. It's very straightforward. The dates are in the guidelines, and we will always be reaching out to you. You'll get emails from grants@artsmidhudson.org, like in a appropriate amount of time of heads up. So you'll get reminders from us when these are coming up. And then for programmatic support only, there will be quarterly reports. And these are short descriptions which outline progress and provide numbers on attendance by zip code and revenue per event. So it's very important if you're applying for programmatic support that you're prepared to gather this information on a quarterly basis. And then the final report is required of all awardees for both CBI and programmatic support. And that is a longer narrative form with details on successes, statistics, and areas of improvement. And that's due at the conclusion of the funding period. It includes a final budget explaining how funds were spent. And like I said, all reports are submitted on Submittable. If at any point you have a question about the deadlines, if you receive a grant, those deadlines will be listed in a couple of different places. They will be listed for all of your reports for both grants. They'll be listed in the contract that you receive from us if you receive funding. We're also requiring all awardees for all of our funding opportunities to attend compliance meetings similar to this one, similar in length and scope, where we go over all of the reporting requirements so that there's absolutely no ambiguity about what's being asked of you. And then also you'll get emails from us in the weeks leading up to the reports being due. Okay, and a measurement of success. So we really, even now, as you're thinking of applying for Dutchess Partners in the Arts, we want you to really be thinking about how you're going to measure your project, because you're in it to win it, right? You're here to get the grant. So some ways to measure the success of your project will include tracking zip codes and revenue. And you also want to ask yourself, what other data could you be tracking that's going to provide thoughtful analysis of the impact of Dutchess Partners in the Arts funding? Some examples, of course, include tracking zip codes of attendees, surveying impact on local economy, how your organization was impacted. For example, was there an increase in membership in your organization, if that's applicable to your programs, in your mailing list, in social media activity as a result of receiving funding? For capacity building initiatives, tracking can be qualitative or it can be quantitative. We really want to make sure we're receiving applications that include a plan for tracking this data. So if you get to the question about how you'll track attendance and realize you don't have a plan, please feel free to reach out to us. Don't assume that it's impossible to do so if you've never thought through this before. We can brainstorm together and we can figure out a good strategy for you. All right, and then some final tips before we go into the Q&A. Okay, so the fiscal sponsor piece tends to be the most time-consuming task when preparing these grants. And again, this is specifically for programmatic support only. Capacity building initiatives do not, a fiscal sponsor would not apply to this. This is only for programmatic support. If you're planning on applying as with a fiscal sponsor for programmatic support and you're an individual or an unincorporated group, I recommend starting that process now if you haven't yet, especially if you don't already know who your fiscal sponsor is going to be. That can sometimes be a couple of weeks worth of back and forth of thinking through, oh, well, who's a fiscal sponsor that meets these eligibility guidelines? Who's a fiscal sponsor whose mission is really centered on the arts in Dutchess County? That's going to take some effort to really think through if you haven't already secured that. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's something you really want to be thinking about now. I would hate to see someone reach out to us 2 days before the deadline saying they don't have a fiscal sponsor. I don't want you to be in that spot. So yeah, definitely start thinking through that now. If you need help identifying who would be a good fiscal sponsor, Arts Mid-Hudson is happy to brainstorm that process with you. We generally aren't able to make a pairing between an individual unincorporated group and a fiscal sponsor. Sometimes we are, but that's not something that we can promise. But what we can help you do is brainstorm that possibility. Just talking through, well, who have you worked with in the past? Who do you know? Whose work do you admire? Who's in alignment with these guidelines? That is a conversation we're very happy to help walk you through. And it often is very helpful and does speed the process along for the individual unincorporated group. Definitely take a look at the online guidelines application form early on. I recommend also making a doc, like whether it's a Word doc or a Google doc that inputs all of the application form questions so that you can, really start working on it, sharing it out with other people. And you can really start, at this early stage, with more than a month in advance, really start putting your thoughts to paper. Or you can input it in the grant form, in the submittable form too, whichever. We all have different processes as grant writers. Another important thing to do early on is to start organizing digital copies of all the required attachments. This is another thing that tends to trip people up in the 2 or 3 or a day before the grant is due. It's very frustrating as, somebody submitting the grant on the day of the deadline to be trying to get the attachments to work, to realize that you don't have the right attachments the day before the grant is due. I strongly recommend not leaving all of the attachments to the last minute. I would get those documents attached to your application as soon as possible, especially if you're working with a collaborative group or you realize you don't have those attachments and you need them from other people or other stakeholders or board members, for example. I would start asking for those things now so that by April 21st or in a few weeks before April 21st, you're already sitting pretty with all of those attachments ready to go. And then, of course, at any time, please make an appointment with Arts Mid-Hudson to get some feedback if you feel that that's something that will set you up for success. Even if you've been submitting to us for a couple of years, even if you've won several grants from Arts Mid-Hudson, it's still always good to have an extra set of eyes on your proposal. And of course, the day of in the few days leading up to your submission, if you run into any technical issues, you can always reach out to us. I would just be amiss in not pointing out the potential potholes that I see, in this capacity so that you can hopefully sidestep them. All right, just to reiterate, we have this info session. It is going to be recorded. It is being recorded. And it's going to be placed on YouTube for you to go back and look at if you so desire. And we will also, in addition, be having the drop-in Zoom Q&A sessions coming up on these dates. You can use the same link that you used to access this info session will be used to access the Q&A sessions. You can use the same link for each, and it is in the email that you received from Vanessa. You can sign up. Well, actually, no, if you're in this info session, you already signed up for these drop-in Q&As. So yay, check that off your box. You can attend one, you can attend more than one, you can attend 0. They're really just there for you to use as you'd like. Okay, we are at the end of our presentation. We're going to head into the Q&A session in a sec. I want to thank you all so much for your interest in Dutchess Partners in the Arts and for the time you're going to expend putting together your proposal. We know it's a lot of work putting together any grant, and we really value your work and your interest in supporting tourism in Dutchess County and growing your organization. Again, my name is Laura Doe. I'm the grants manager for Arts Mid-Hudson, and joining me is Vanessa Cabuccio-Bear, our funding coordinator. You can reach both of us at grants@artsmidhudson.org or at 845-454-3222, extension 11. We really endeavor to, be the same brain. If you reach out to either of us, you're going to get the same quality information, whoever you reach out to. Email is always the quickest way to reach us, but if you're welcome to call us as well. And we will be transitioning to the Q&A shortly.